When you're talking to a prospective buyer on the phone, the three most common objections you're going to get, which will prevent you from being able to set an appointment with them, is what's your best price? Do you have the car in stock? And how much will you give me for my trade? My name's Dave England, and I'm going to share some tips to overcome those objections and be more successful in setting appointments. When they say, I need your best price, if you're not willing to give it to me, I'm just going to hang up and call somebody else. Then I ask the customer, okay, if I were to give you a price and you understand it's not the lowest price, is that the only factor that you care about? And if the customer says, yes, I only care about getting the best price, then I would ask them, and this is dependent on whether the car that they're looking for is readily available everywhere, but if it's not, then I would say, okay, so if someone gives you a cheaper price, but it's not the color you want. If someone were to give you the cheapest price, but it doesn't have all the options you want, is that something that would lead you to go there anyhow just because it was the lowest price? And I would engage the customer and continue to ask them questions along those lines, waiting to see if there's an opportunity for me to be able to do something, especially if I've established who that customer is and I know that they're local to my store, or if I know that they've done business with my dealership previously. It's very important to leverage the information that you get when you ask questions to a prospective buyer and reiterate those along the course of your conversation so that you can use them to be able to then move forward confidently and ask for that appointment. So I would tell somebody, I understand that you're looking for best price, but if you've done this before and you've shopped around, you're going to realize that there's probably not a big difference in price between dealership to dealership for the same exact car. So if it meant driving across town and spending a bunch of time working with someone, only to find out that you saved $200 or $300 on a $30,000 car, let's say, is that really worth the amount of time that you're going to spend going through the process the way that you want to? Generally, they may say, yes, it's worth my time if I can save money. At $200, $300 is a lot of money to me. Take it away from the dollar amount and start talking in percentages. And on a $30,000 car, it's 1%. So if you give the prospective buyer an illustration, do you drink coffee? Typically, they're going to go, yes. Okay. Do you go to Starbucks or a place similar to Starbucks for your coffee? They're going to say yes. Just out of curiosity, the Starbucks that you frequent, is it one that's near your house or one that's near where you work? Usually the answer is going to be one or the other because it's something that they're going to do on their way to work if they're working every day. So if it's near their home, I'm going to ask them a question. Okay, so you pick up a cup of coffee from Starbucks and you do that on your way to work, correct? And that prospective buyer is going to go, yes, I pick up coffee from Starbucks on my way to work. I'm going to say, if I could show you a way that you could drive an extra 5 miles out of your way in order to save 1% on that cup of coffee, is that something that you'd be open to discuss? And when you phrase things in a way that your prospective buyers don't expect them to come, then they're going to stop and they're going to think about what you're saying, which slows them down, but then they start understanding really what 1% means. And is it worth 1% savings on a $30,000 car to be able to go through this elongated process and potentially get lied to by someone at a different dealership only to try to set an appointment with them and then show them that they lied to them? So if it's 1%, it makes much less impact on a potential buyer than if you're talking $200 or $300. So when they ask, hey, do you have this car in stock? I don't want to set an appointment with you unless I know for sure that you have that car available. I will start asking customers questions to evaluate what their needs are and determine whether it might make more sense for them to, rather than focus on one particular car, to come in and take a look at some different options and then weigh them when they're here with me, which leads them to be able to say, yes, I'll come see you for an appointment. So the first question that I typically ask if a customer is asking about a specific vehicle being in stock, I'll just ask them a question which comes across kind of randomly. Hey, do you mind, Mr. Customer, if I ask you a question? If it was a different car that met your needs, if it was the same car in a different color, but I was able to save you a little bit of money, is that something that you'd be open to? These are questions you can ask if it's a new car. If it's a used car that they're asking about, then I would say something that's very similar to that okay, so I understand that you're looking for this 2014 Toyota Corolla LE, but if I were able to show you some cars that were similar to that, that got better gas mileage, if I were able to show you some cars that were similar to that, that actually saved you a little bit of money in a monthly payment, would you be open to seeing those vehicles? When they answer, yes, I would, go for the appointment. Ask them to come in. Whether that initial car that they asked for is in stock or not is really irrelevant, because they just told you over the phone they would be open. Because you didn't confirm that that car is actually in stock in the first place, they can't be mad at you. But I want that person to come in and take a look at some things and spend some time with me at my desk so I can ask questions to be able to find out what really fits their needs. Going back to a new car, if it's something that you don't have in stock and they're adamant, I absolutely have to have that car in that color with those options, and you don't have it, I don't want to encourage you to say something that's not true. But at the same time, I would want to know, by making sure I'm clear on who my buyer is, what their time frame is. So when they go, do you have that car in stock? I would ask them, oh, Mrs. Customer, do you absolutely need to make a purchase on that vehicle today? 99.9% of times, that person's going to say, no, I don't need to buy a vehicle today. So if I could get the car that you're looking for and be able to have it to you fairly soon, you'd be open to coming and see me, would you? And when they go, well, yeah, as long as you can get that exact car in that color, then bring that customer in. You can always do a locate. You can possibly put them on a vehicle that's inbound or put an order in for one, rather than making it a way for the customer to not come in, because when you tell them, no, you don't have it in stock, they're not going to sit there and engage you and try to figure out what you can do to get them to come in. They're going to say, I'm done with you. You don't have what I'm looking for, and I'm going to move on to the next phone call. The third most common objection has to do with trade-in values, and it's something that comes up fairly frequently. And typically your prospective buyer is going to say, if you can't give me what I want for the trade, then I'm definitely not going to do business with you. And part of my response to this has to do with where you work and what your management is going to allow you to do, because some people don't want your customer to have any information before they come in, but information's available whether your manager wants you to give it to them or not. And if you're in an area that utilizes Kelley Blue Book, then you're going to understand that a potential buyer that's going to have a trade-in can go to kelleybluebook.com and be able to get an idea of what their car's worth. So I will typically lead a customer to go to a place like kelleybluebook.com, or I will take a look at the information that came in on a lead, which is something that we often miss. But a lot of times the source with someone that's dealing with the trade-in that wants to know the value has submitted a lead that actually is a trade-in value lead more so than a vehicle that they're wanting to buy, because the amount that they get for the trade is very important. So I'll take a look at the lead, and especially if it comes in from a site like kbb.com, it's going to give them a trade-in range. So they're already going to have the information that they're looking for. I'm going to want to know what it is that they hope to accomplish. So for example, if the customer has a 2001 Honda Accord and Kelley Blue Book says that car's worth $1,000 to $2,000, and they're asking me what the trade-in value is, I already know what information they've given them. So I'm going to talk to that prospective buyer. I'm going to say, I see that you utilize KelleyBlueBook.com in order to get a trade-in range on your vehicle, and that shows that they gave you an amount of between $1,000 to $2,000. How does that sound to you? I'm asking a question rather than answering their question, so therefore when I ask them a question, I'm asking for a response. And if my question is, how does that sound to you? It's not reasonable for that person to say, no, I'm not interested. They should just give me an answer. Yeah, that sounds about right, or no, I don't agree with that. At which point, if it sounds right, the reasonable thing to do is just ask that person to commit to come in for an appointment, and then you're going to go through the appraisal process and show them what it's worth when they're sitting at your desk ready to buy a vehicle. If they say, no, it's not reasonable, I don't necessarily care what that buyer's wanting. Because if I say, hey, Kelley Blue Book, who's a respected authority in providing trade-in values to consumers, says that the car's worth about $1,000 to $2,000, and then that buyer says, well, I won't take less than $5,000 for it, and you encourage them to come in, their expectation is that you're going to give them $5,000 whether you say so or not. So when they come in and you find out that they weren't accurate on the condition of the car and it's really worth $200, now you have someone that's super upset and they feel like you baited them to come in and then gave them the wrong information. So what I can do is, if you already know that's what Kelley Blue Book says your car's worth and you feel like it's worth more, can we schedule an appointment for you to bring the car in? And while my used car manager is taking a look at your vehicle, that gives us an opportunity to spend a few minutes looking at our inventory and helping you find a vehicle that you might be interested in. So understanding that you want to get as much information as you can, I'd like to move forward and just schedule a time when our used car manager can take a look at your car for you. So would this afternoon at 4:45 be okay, or would tomorrow morning, say around 11:15, be better for you? And that's a question that leads me into being able to ask for an appointment.